My journey to Mozambique. From Durban, I went to Mozambique to do money rituals. I am looking for any man of God that can come to my house and pray for me. But I do not want a pastor that is a fly-by-night or someone that would try to have fame because of me. Let me tell you what forced a man like me to end up doing money rituals. I was never like this. I arrived in South Africa and then I started to work as a truck driver. I was staying in Durban. So in the company which I was working for in Durban, we used to carry fuel from one depot to another. And I and another brother, we were the only foreigners that were working at that fuel depot. So the challenge that we started to face was that, as you know, that most of the people that are working for big companies, you end up doing deals because you say that the money is not enough. So the guy that was doing all of the deals, he was a Zimbabwean guy who was the controller in that company. He would just tell you, go and drop off the diesel at this other service station, and then you return back empty and you quickly go and get more diesel, and then you go. That will be the diesel that you will pretend as if it is your first load. We used to do this. The first load, you will rush and you collect so many liters of diesel, then you rush to this other service station, and the way that they used to exchange money, it was cash. You will get your cash later on when you were back in the location, so that no one will suspect. I then saw that when you are working with other people, they will tell you that let us do this deal. But when it comes time for you to pay back, or maybe the boss now knows, everyone will stand on his own. The people that you used to deal with, they will act as if they do not even know what you are talking about. That is exactly the situation that happened to me. When that controller was fired, unfortunately my boss, he loved me quite a lot. And then he said, since you are already experienced as a controller, you're going to be working. So I was working at the office. So these other workmates of mine, they were forcing me to continue doing the deals because everyone was used to making quick cash at work. When I told them that I was afraid that I would get fired and I would lose the job, then they started to hate me, saying that I was not a South African. I was supposed to stop working at that company. I said, God, I'm not going to stop working here. I'm going to work here until I have the things that I want in life. But then there was another guy who was also a Zulu guy. He then came to me and he said, if you continue working, what I've heard these guys planning, they are planning to take your life. So I think that it is far much better, and it is better for your own safety that you just stop working. As difficult as it was, I finally decided that let me just stop working, and I stopped going to work. Even my boss, he was hurt. When I was now permanently staying in the location, I trusted in my wife. When I stopped going to work, I thought that my wife, since she was already working, she had a nice job. We could survive on her job whilst I was looking for a plan B. The moment that I told my wife that I was no longer working, that was when I saw hell on earth. I then started to understand something about women that is very difficult for you to understand if you are a husband and you have been working all of your life, and your wife, she has been playing the supportive role. When there was no more salary that was entering into my pockets, she told me that she could not be with me anymore. I thought that it was a joke, it was a prank, but then she told me that she has been sleeping with another guy already and she could not continue sleeping with me because she would feel as if she is betraying that other second boyfriend who was working. Because of the pain that I felt the day when she told me that she has been sleeping with another guy, I stood up and then I slapped her. And she was waiting for that opportunity. When a woman does not want you, she just waits for that opportunity when you lay your hands on her. She then called the police on me. I was arrested. I was then taken to prison for gender-based violence, and I stayed in prison. Whilst I was in prison, that was when I met this other Mozambican guy. So most of the people that were there, they were saying things like, this one, he just lies, he's just creating stories, because he had been arrested with a hand of this other boy that had been found in the boot of his car. So when he would speak of the stories of what had happened for him to be caught with human remains in his car, people were just saying that, you are lying, no such things can exist. But I became friends with him because from where I come from, I knew that there were people that were practicing witchcraft, so I quickly believed him. We became good friends, and then he started to tell me that he went to Mozambique. Where he went to Mozambique, he was then given some muti that he was supposed to use. So this muti that he brought back to South Africa, the rules that he had to follow was that he was not supposed to sleep with a black woman of a darker complexion. He was only supposed to sleep with these women that are lighter in complexion, your yellow bones. And that was the rule that he had to do. And he was also given a task when he had messed up in some of the rituals, that he was supposed to kill a person. And that is what got him arrested. He had a farm, and he went around looking for someone to hijack. He then found this other boy that was an illegal immigrant, and he was just walking looking for a job. He then offered him a job at his farm. They took him to the farm where they slaughtered him and removed his body parts. That was when he was caught with that human hand. So when it was time for me to come out of prison, I already had a piece of paper that I had written the names and the places where he used to tell me that he went to such a sangoma in such and such a place. Because my papers, they were no longer all right, I was then deported. The moment that they released me, then Home Affairs deported me back to Zim. I arrived in Zim with nothing. I had lost my wife. And all those years that I had worked in South Africa, because I was working nice, you don't think much about home. You're just living a nice life in South Africa. I then went to Mutoko, where I originally come from. I then spoke with my uncle, who was my father's elder brother. He then gave me a small piece of land, and he said, okay, you can use this land to grow your tobacco. And then I started to work. It is not easy to grow and work on tobacco until it is ready for the market. But I worked. When we went to the market, God had mercy on me, and I sold my tobacco at a nice price. And then that was when I thought of using that money to go to Mozambique. All along, this was my plan, to look for money, and I can go and I can do those rituals in Mozambique. But my uncle, he did not know. When we returned back to Mutoko, my uncle sat with me down and he said, this money that you have gotten, I want you to use it for the next planting season, all the things that you are going to require, and also look for a woman, because people in the village, they were afraid that I would end up committing even suicide. But I said, no, I am fine. I have other plans. I already had other plans that I did not want people to know about them. I then got onto the bus and off I went to Mozambique. When I went to Mozambique, it was very difficult to find that sangoma. What I did not know is that this sangoma, because he had been a wanted criminal for a very long time, because what he had been doing was that they were killing people and selling off the body parts. So the police were looking for him. He then changed his operating name. So this is the reason why it took me a couple of days for me to find where this old man was staying, because I just knew him by the name that I had been given when I was still in prison. One day, there was this other old man that he had a bike, and then I asked him about this sangoma that I had been searching for, and I could not find him. That old man then told me that he knew that man, if I was going to pay him, he would take me straight to that village. I finally arrived in that village, and I saw that there were a lot of people that had also arrived at that village and they were looking for charms to make money as quickly as possible. I was then taken into another house. So that Sangoma, what he used to do is that depending with what charms you wanted from him, you will not stay in the same rooms. Those that had just come so that they can get some charms to cure several diseases, they stayed on their own. And us that were there for Satanism and money rituals, we were staying in our own area, as well as the pregnant women and those that were looking for kids. So I was then taken into another room, but this was like a big house. As I was walking inside of that house, that was when I noticed something that was very strange that was happening in another room. When I checked in there, I saw men. There were 7 men. They all had pigs in front of them, and they were sleeping with the pigs. These were the rituals that they had been told to perform. Brother Nashi, I was shocked. I just closed the door and then I kept on walking until I had gone into a room which did not have a lot of people. There were blankets on the floor, and I took those blankets and I went to bed because I had been walking around for a very long time and I was very tired. Even my legs, they were swollen. The next day, that was when I was told to wash my manhood and I was supposed to be intimate. And I am afraid to get into details, but because I might get myself arrested with the things that happened when I was being intimate with such a woman. And after that painful part, that was when I was taken into another room. They gave me a black cloth and then they told me that I was supposed to pick any kind of a creature that I wanted to use as a tokology in my business. So as I was standing in that room, there were a couple of creatures that were appearing before me. And these creatures that were appearing before me, some of these creatures, they were like your lions, your hyenas, until I saw a snake. The Sangoma then told me that since I had taken a very long time to choose what I wanted, then he was going to choose for me. So the Sangoma, he ended up choosing a snake for me against my wishes. He then told me that he was going to put that snake in a bucket and I was supposed to bath, and I bathed with the muti, and then I was told to return back to Zim. I was told that the moment that I arrive in Zim, I was supposed to look for a grave and to take the soil, but only red soil from a particular grave. And the other rule was that as I was returning back from Mozambique, I was not supposed to use any public transport. If I would get into a car that would take me back to Zim, this car, it was supposed to be driven by a woman. So I went to the taxi rank and all the taxis and buses, they were being driven by men. Then I started walking. I walked and I walked for many kilometers, close to 50-something kilometers from that village where I had just did the money rituals. Then there was a car that stopped for me and there was a woman that was driving. She was also Zimbabwean. She was with her brother as well as her sister-in-law, who was the brother's wife. They told me that they had came to Mozambique to stock, and they felt sorry for me because I lied to them that I had came to Mozambique to look for a job, but unfortunately things did not work out nice for me. They made me to get into their car and off we went to Zim. She drove maybe for about 20-something kilometers and then she grew tired. And it was her brother's turn to drive. I then lied to them that I just wanted to relieve myself because I had diarrhea. When I got into the bushes, I ran away because I was afraid to be in that car whilst the brother was driving. Fast forward, I returned back to Harare and I started to look for a grave that had red soil. I walked and I walked until I arrived in this other village and I found this other house that was abandoned. Lucky enough, there was a grave, and on top of that grave there was an anthill that was there with red soil. So I took it and I undressed myself in broad daylight in a village where people did not even know me. and I was afraid that I was going to get caught and people would beat me to death. But I managed to successfully complete that ritual. After that ritual was complete, that was when I went to my uncle and I borrowed him some money. I told him that things did not work out for me in Mozambique, but I had another plan. I was going to return him back the money. He gave me money and I returned back to the city, and then I started to look for a job, as I had been told by that Sangoma to look for any kind of a job or any kind of a business that I was supposed to start, and it had to be simple. So I would go to a hardware and just buy your nails, I'll buy your tape measures, spirit levels, and I would sell them in the tax ranks. And I started making money just like that. I managed to get a car. Soon after that, I started businesses. I opened bottle stores. And the first car that I bought, it was a BMW X5. One day, I got into the vehicle. That was when I saw a snake that was on top of the dashboard. The Sangoma had told me that I was supposed to return back to Mozambique before there was any funeral in the family. But unfortunately, there was one amongst my relatives who was someone that had assisted me from a very young age, going to school, paying my school fees. So I said, I can't just go to Mozambique without attending this funeral. But I did not know that it was the place where things got messed up. Then the snake became a real snake. So when I returned back to Mozambique, the traditional healer then told me that it is what it is. I had made a deal with the devil, and the devil was going to require blood from me. So now I have this snake. There are those that even wonder, how is it possible that you have a snake that is a physical snake? There are different types of togoloshis. There is a togoloshi that you can see in your dreams only or in a vision. Then there are togoloshis like mine that you can see physically. But this togoloshi, when you see it, it possesses the body of a person or it possesses the body of an animal. So this togoloshi of mine, when this snake, when it dies, it goes into the forest and then it possesses another snake. And then that snake comes to my place. This snake, ever since I got this togoloshi and I messed up the rituals, it has been growing. I do not even know where to put it anymore. I used to keep it inside of a bucket in one of the rooms at my house, but now I can't keep it inside of a bucket because it is too big. That is why I said that I'm looking for a pastor. I am tired of sangomas. I do not want to serve the same master because I am already serving the devil. If I go to another sangoma who might be serving the same spirit that is giving me this money through rituals, it does not help me at all. I have learned a lesson that the devil is a liar. If I was given another opportunity to live, there is no way that I will ever repeat such a mistake. With the things that I have seen and learned in my life, I will never even bother. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to us by one of our dear brother. Let us speak about this in the comment section. Strange things indeed they do happen in this world. Can you imagine?